It's Wednesday. Let's chat. Hi, I'm Kanan Chandran, the publisher of StormAsia.com, and this is our regular series of Wednesday web chats, our WED Web Chat. It's been an ongoing series of discussions, especially since the pandemic has begun, and we're probably into our 60th session with this discussion today. Now, today we are looking at the future of demand, which is a series of discussions that I've developed, and we're focusing on the automotive and shipping industries. Now, I think it's fair to say that change has been a significant constant for these industries, and even before the pandemic, major global factors were having a significant pull on them. Climate change, sustainability demands and requirements, carbon footprints, electrification, pollution, just some of the many issues that have been blowing very strongly into these industries and how they operate. And it's, of course, been a particularly rough couple of years for everyone. And to talk a bit about that and where we're going, we've got in our panel today Mark Pirie, who is the Vice President of Purchasing and Supplier Management in Asia Pacific, and the Head of Purchasing Automotive Technologies at Schaeffler Manufacturing, and Mark is based in Thailand. And we've also got Daniel Chui, who is the Managing Director of the Oceanic Group, which has been around for about 13 years. The Schaeffler Group has more than 7 decades of mobility experience as a global automotive and industrial supplier. Schaeffler manufactures high-precision components and systems. It generates sales of nearly euros 14 billion in 2021. It employs 83,000 workers in 200 locations in over 50 countries. It's a big company, and if you haven't heard of it, almost every car has some component from Schaeffler in it. If you put it that way, that's how extensive its reach is. The Oceanic Group provides specialized cruise products from startup stage to onboard operations and general management, and it has operations in China, Hong Kong, and Singapore. So Mark and Daniel, how have your companies navigated the pandemic?
Hello to everyone that's joining us today. Yes, my name's Mark Pirie. I'm in Thailand. I've been here for 17 years. I've been with Schaeffler now approximately 3.5 years, so it was a recent change for me. The reason I joined Schaeffler was I was very passionate about sustainability and I wanted to get involved in those topics. And also I was very interested in the e-mobility and development of e-mobility, and Schaeffler is at the forefront of that, hence why I wanted to join. But coming back to your question, it's definitely been a traumatic 2.5, 3 years with the pandemic. And although we're coming out the other side, there's been lots of challenges to overcome during that time. I think the first thing with the pandemic was the disruptions that we've seen to the supply chain. And what this tended to do was highlight the weaknesses that we did have that we didn't necessarily know at that time. And then even the second and third wave have even shown us even now that there's still a lot of work to do to make those improvements. And secondly, and most important for me, was the welfare of our employees during that time and their families. So we've seen the working cultures change very much. You know, there's a big work from home culture now. I think people's expectations of how they want to have a work-life balance has also changed. So we've also had to navigate that as well.
Thank you, Kanan, for having us. Even before the pandemic, the cruise business has been undergoing a lot of challenges relating to pricing, manpower. Please remember that we are in the people's oriented business. So the cruise business is basically a hospitality business, and we serve people, and we need people to serve people. So you can imagine and we are still living through. It's been very hard. This pandemic has hit the cruise business, the hospitality, very tremendously hard. Unlike Mark, we have a couple of ships that we have all to mothball, and then set them aside, sell whatever we can, and then we retrench 90% of our staff and more. And even if the business get restored, unlike the new normal, whereby the staff can choose to work 30%, 40% at home, and then the rest at the site place, we can't. We need you to be on. We need you to be on the site. We need you to be on the ship. So we are still navigating all the various pitfalls and then all the various pit stops. It has not been easy, but the bright light is at the end of the horizon. Things are getting very much better. In fact, the recovery is overdue anytime now. Just a bit about myself. I've been in the cruise business for about 25 years, in fact, all my life. After graduation, I just stumbled upon the LNG business, which is interestingly very different from the cruise business. One carries liquefied petroleum gas, and then a few years later, I just decided to go to the cruise business, and no looking back. So I start everything. My training has been from working on board the ship, sales and purchase, financial operations. So everything that needs to get the ship going, marketing it, operating it, I'm quite aware of the ropes. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for the quick overviews. So you're both in sort of very different aspects of your business, right? So for Mark, you spotted a lot of things that could have been improved because of the COVID and what it forced the company to do. Were those things that you would normally have caught as you've progressed, regardless of the pandemic, or were they just so set that you didn't realize it?
No, I think the things that we were working on and striving to improve, we were already focused on. So we want to have a more agile supply chain. In terms of localization to mitigate risk, we were already working on. But I think the key thing here probably was digitalization and how we have visibility of what's going on in our supply chain, both at our suppliers, at our customers, and also within our own manufacturing facilities and the control of those stock inventories. So I think something that's come out of this is we need to sort of speed up that process and get better visibility of that, especially when we see the second and third wave where all the ports shut down in China. I think we all faced significant delays in the supply chain. So that then gets us to question and look at our localization. How much dependency do we have in China compared to other regions in the world? And I guess the balance there is you want to control the risk and mitigate the risk, but then you always have the challenge of cost. So our best cost suppliers are located in China and India and other places throughout Asia Pacific. And I think it's finding a balance between mitigating that risk but still being cost competitive to position us to be competitive for the customer.
I think one of the issues that will face many people is the rising cost of everything that seems to be taking place around the world, right? How does this affect your business, and do you see people just sort of saying, well, can't do much about it, just have to pay for it? Or do you see people easing off on doing business?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely we've seen some challenges. So if we give some specific details so we can understand some of the context. If we look at the Ukraine effect, basically we've seen steel exports from India go through the roof, and that pushed the prices up to 35-40% increases, significant increases, and our core business are around steel products. So that had a direct impact to it. Now, can we pass that directly onto the customer? We don't see it like that. We need to be innovative. So when we're looking at our product design, when we're looking at our manufacturing processes, we're looking at how we can eliminate waste, how we can reduce the amount of steel that we're using, both on forgings, castings, and these types of technologies, but also increasing how we can do recycling of that material. And the honest answer is we need to negotiate strongly with our supply chain. We need to find innovative ideas to reduce waste, to try and offset some of that cost increase. We also did techniques of forward buying, leveraging. So we're buying steel at the cheaper price at an earlier stage. And we're also buying steel for some of our third-party suppliers to protect their, their production facilities to have inventory of raw stock. But also on the flip side, we've been supported very well by our key account managers and our sales teams. The reality is we have had to pass some of those costs on to our customers. And based on our experience, where we've had transparency of what those costs are and can directly show how they're influenced by the market, I would say we've had a good response from our customers, and they've been quite supportive as they face the same challenges we do.
So the transparency part is quite important. If your customer knows what you're going through, they are a bit more appreciative of what they might have to do as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Does the same apply to you, Daniel? I know you've had to retrench a lot of people now, trying to get everybody back on board. That's going to be a bit of a challenge, right?
Yes and no. The cruise business is a very interesting animal. The moment you embark on it, even though you have been let go, there's this desire that you want to come back to it, one form or another. So regretfully, we have to let go of a lot of stuff, but quietly, confidently, we know that when we are ready to start, we can get many of them back. This is the same situation that you saw that we see in Star Cruises. Star Cruises, we all know the story of what happened to Star Cruises, and they have to let go about 150 staff or so, the whole entire, many staff in the office in Singapore. But just 2 months ago, when they announced that they're ready to start, they got back 75%, 80% quickly. So that's probably because of the passion that people have. You must love the business. You must love what you're doing. So if you love interacting with people as in the cruising, they will come back. But we are facing new challenges. The labor cost is going up due to inflation, and then oil prices is going up. We have this fluctuation here and there. Can we pass it down to the passengers? Technically speaking, yes, because in all the cruise tickets terms and conditions, we have this interesting clause to say that should oil prices reach a certain level whereby it's too much to bear for the operators or for the owners, please understand that we may have to pass it on to you. So we pass it on in the form of an oil surcharge. We see that happening as well in for airlines and other forms of air freight and sea freight and so on and so forth. Supply chain, yes, we probably face the same challenge as Mark, but because we are in the cruise, so we move from one destination to another. So what we do is usually we purchase a lot of our inventory beforehand. We have price hedging. We have all these historical prices, but inventories get drawn down, and the problem comes and the challenge comes when you have to buy new ones for oncoming cruises. Now, please remember that the cruise ships consumes a lot of food stuff. Because we are like a floating hotel, so hotels will consume tons and tons and tons of meat and then eggs and so on and so forth. So what we can do is usually from one destination to another, we do what we call purchasing off the land or from the land. So that helps in some form of what would be the best local produce that we can get it from, or the seasonal purchase. So all this helps in the mitigation of things one form or another. Passing costs to consumer is one thing, but consumer experiences, consumers' acceptability to the product matters a lot to us. So while we are trying our very best to hold cruise fare, like the airlines prices, there are many other sources of revenue that we can really tap on the passengers. You can imagine at the moment the passengers come on board, even though, for example, if a cruise ticket of yesteryear costs $1, we will try to maintain it at $1. But the moment you come on board the ship, there are many other means of attractions, facilities that we will hope to have you spend another $1. So that helps in a form to mitigate our cost of goods sold and everything else, and doesn't affect too much of our P&L. But we can only do so much. Yeah.
So are you saying then that in the past with the cruise, you paid one price and you got everything free? That might change?
No, it really depends on your business model. You can now it's becoming more and more fashionable to have one price paid for all, one price you have it all. That is still going to be the normal form of business operation. But there are many other attractions and many other forms of services that we provide that that you need to pay based on pay as you use consumption behavior basis.
Mm. So what would you think would be the anticipated cost rise for the customer on your cruises?
Many. It's a confluence of factors. And then.
But if you were to say at the end of it, this was my cost for my trip versus a similar cost I did maybe before the pandemic, how much more do you think they'll be paying?
If I can just give 2 or 3 examples, cost of fuel has gone up by about 40% from before. It fluctuates, about 40%. And then if you go any higher, if you pass the 110, 120, 150 at one time, historically in the 2000, when a barrel of oil was 140, 150, all the cruise operators around the world, many of them come together and the discussion was we need to apply oil surcharge. The good news was it doesn't last very long before oil price start to come down again. So a lot of this really has to do with geopolitical situation and the government of the day. So common sense must prevail. For now, oil prices about 40%. Human resource, crew, staff costs on the ship. Our ship is 2,500 passengers. We have about 1,000 crew. So the service level is 1:2.5, 1:2. The luxury ones is 1:1. We saw a lot of Ukrainian seafarers not being able to connect, and then we're getting it from the other alternative, and prices for this has gone up to 10-20%, and then all the so that's 20%. Food cost is really something very scary. That is a stable food, like even like your chicken and then your fish and then your vegetables and everything else. Vegetables is perishables that we buy on a very regular basis off the land, local produce. So that has gone up to 30%. So how are we able to manage this and then have it pass on to the consumers? I think this is really an art than a science. And how much you want to pass it on? So yeah.
So are your cruises up and running again, or are you planning, or what's the status?
Now is the best of time and also the worst of time. The best of time is because the whole around for cruise to be meaningful, for cruise operations to be meaningful, you need the support, the logistic, the air connectivity of all the countries. Unless you do cruise to nowhere where you just go out and then you come back, you can only do so many. That's it. People still want to. It's a vacation. It's a cruise. It's a holiday. So while Singapore has opened up all the cruise terminals, we're waiting for Indonesia, a bit of Malaysia, Thailand, and then so on and so forth. The Southeast Asia countries. We believe that they're doing that probably by end of third quarter to end of this year. So when that opens, we have to prepare. We need about 6 to 9 months anyway to get the ship in operations, to prepare her, and then to launch it. So we're talking about probably June 2023, and then when all that, and then that's where all the confluence of factors and the alignment of the stars. Hopefully where the war would have stopped, everyone's wish, inflation would have come down, the big R recession issue. Interest rate, and then the food costs, and then the ports have opened up, the air connectivity, the tourism numbers will have come back to 30%, 40%. The scale up is also important because we see what is happening now in London, in Europe, where the UK Heathrow airport is saying, please stop flying here, please stop, we can't handle. So scale up is good rather than bottlenecking and all the explosion of the pent-up demand. So give us 2023, 24, 23, probably third quarter, second to third quarter will be a good time to have it meaningfully launched. 2024 will be meaningfully stabilize, and then we take it from there.
Yeah,
Okay.
Daniel, just to touch on that a little bit. So I recently traveled through Germany, and what you're talking about there, the ramp up, you're definitely seeing that in the airports with the baggage handling and just not enough staff in the airports at all. And it's completely disorganized. So I think the effects are going to take some time to build up the skilled staff to be able to bring those services back to the level that people expect.
Yeah, this is really a it's very vicious spiral effect. When the pandemic hit all of us, regretfully, we have to let a lot of people go. The same as the airlines, and then the hotel staff, so they find other jobs. And then when everyone is in a hurry to open up the economy, open up the industry, everyone wants to get out. And when that happens, I think seriously, the machinery of processors can only take so much. When you overwork. And always remember that the hospitality business is a people's business. People get fatigued. It's just like the pandemic affects people, affects the medical staff. They get fatigued, they get tired. And everyone is rushing to get cured, to prevent. So when we were to look at this from that perspective onto the hospitality business, you have the same effect. You're dealing with very healthy, angry people, and also very unhealthy, angry people. So there we are.
And of course, the other thing to factor is that the pandemic, the virus is still around. It's mutating, so you don't know if a future mutation may be quite a strong one again. And different countries are adopting different policies about how they want to fight this, right? So, like in China, they shut cities. In Japan, just starting to open up after such a long time. Wouldn't all that sort of factor in how you're determining your future, pace of growth or even reopening your ships, Daniel?
We've learned a lot from this pandemic. That at the end of the day, it is not just the ship operator or the staff singular responsibility to ensure that we can it's a collective effort that we can in any way mitigate this virus from getting worse. When the pandemic, when COVID first hit the first ship called the Diamond Princess, where she was an anchor in Japan, there's it was the first for Japan. It was the first for ship operators. It was the first for the whole world dealing with it, how to manage it. And you have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people on board, and the multiplier and the infection just got worse, and the whole world suddenly wake up to the idea that it's not nice to be traveling, it's not right to be cruising, and then we better stay at home. So that forms the catalyst of everything. 2 years have passed, and then we realize that human somehow you cannot kill the joy of the inquisitive and everything about the allure of a travel, of cruising. So people are coming back. Now, from a responsible operator, we are also governed by 2 or 3 factors. First and foremost, IMO, International Maritime Organization, and also what's the company's name? CDC, the respective CDCs around the world, the cheerleader, the leader being US, offers a lot of guidelines as to what can we do, what can we do. The ship itself, we ourselves have got doctors. Ships are by compulsory. After the moment you have 50 people on board, 50 guests on board, you need a doctor, you need a clinic, you need a hospital with good advanced equipment. You need medicines, and then you need nurses. You need a certain kind of care. So all cruise ships have that. So what it means is going forward, do we need to intensify? Do we need 2 doctors instead? Do we need 4 nurses? Do we need to have an area defined as a sick bay for quarantine? More ventilated air through HEPA filters and all that. And also, how can we align or connect with a shore-based medical help, hospital help? Should anything break up, how do we deal with it? So all this has been going on since 1-2 years ago, and has been doing very well. And so what you've seen now is probably once in a while, a cruise ship is infected with about 10, 20, 30 cases. But the comforting thing was as long as you really have vaccination in place, second booster check, the passengers themselves must take responsibility, must take care of themselves to make sure that they are just as safe as they are, because they're interacting with very, with a lot of other people out there. So a lot of safety protocol, health protocol, implementation, continuous cleanliness, sanitation, whatever that you see is that it's been done on land, in a hotel. I can tell you with confidence that on a cruise ship, we're doing it multiples of three. We have to take care of our passengers. We have to take care of the people that are our lifeline. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Mark, how about your side?
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of our business growth, obviously we've seen a drop off during the pandemic. What we're now seeing is we're starting to see a recovery, and we think by the middle of next year we'll be back to our pre-pandemic levels in terms of business growth. And in terms of employees, we didn't have to release any employees, which we're very proud of that due to the pandemic. But some of the unique challenges we had, and I think this sort of exemplifies the passion that our team has. In some of our locations, we had to create bubbles. So we had people living in facilities provided by Schaeffler on our manufacturing sites because the team were very committed. They wanted to work. And because of the controls, I guess the biggest challenge was that each country handled the pandemic differently. So I think in Europe it became relaxed a lot quicker, but across Southeast Asia, it certainly took a lot longer. And there's still a lot of restrictions in place in terms of checking your temperature to go into shopping malls, scanning to prove that you've had your vaccination, doing regular ATK tests. Although they're starting to reduce, I think in Asia in particular, it was still very much challenging compared to our European counterparts. But yeah, what we did do to try and work around that was create some bubbles where our employees were actually living on site, so we could still maintain production and meet our customers' requirements.
I suppose somewhere the automotive industry, a slight disruption would probably lead to quite a massive disruption, right, down the line. So are you sort of over that, or are you heading into that, or what's the status?
I think the disruption now, we're managing it through our normal management channels. Previously, we had crisis teams set up, special meetings and monitors in place. But now I would say we're managing it as our normal daily business. There's still some more challenges in there. I think the semiconductor one for the automotive industry is still a very hot topic. So that affects our OEMs. But I would say in general, I think we're definitely on the road to recovery, and hopefully we don't get any more sort of disruptions that we've seen in the last 2 years.
Okay. So, during all of this, did the thought of going into more automated methods of operation come to mind?
Yeah, so this is something we're already focused on. And I think in our discussions we had yesterday, when I look at our strategy and how it's changed, even since my time of joining Schaeffler, our strategy based on purchasing, for example, was quality, cost, and delivery. Now it's fourfold. It's quality, cost, delivery, and sustainability. And under the banner of sustainability, digitalization, automation, and Industry 4.0 obviously falls under that banner. And I think this is something, when we look at our new plant that we have in Vietnam, this is probably our flagship in terms of digitalization. We have cobots working within the manufacturing process with our employees as well. And also we have automated warehouses, again, by robots. So we were already aware, obviously, that this was a direction that we need to go in. What we need to do now is, we've got good examples within Schaeffler. I would say in certain areas of our supply chain, that still needs to be developed, and there's still work to do there in terms of automation and also connecting with them digitally. So, for example, we have a platform called Supplier, which is our digital interaction with our supplier, where we do the order placing and monitor that and monitor the goods coming into our facilities. And in Asia Pacific at the moment, we're probably around 76% of our supply chain are connected. But by the end of this year, we intend to get that to 90%. And then obviously in the following years, we want to work towards 100%. But at the moment, we're on track. But this is continually growing. and that interaction and that connectivity with the suppliers and the customers is something that we're very focused on.
Okay. There's a question here from Sanjay. For both of you, in pushing the sustainable agenda forward, to what degree is your organization implementing green procurement strategies that has a powerful ripple effect across the ecosystem? And what are the concerns of doing this?
Yeah, great question, and one that we expected, to be honest. So we're very much focused on sustainability. We're actually setting up sustainability teams at the moment, separate from their daily tasks, to give this better focus. But we have clear targets within Schaeffler. So a lot of our targets are aligned with the Paris Agreement of 2019. So, for example, our Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions, we want to be carbon neutral by 2030, and we want to be minus 75% by 2025. When we look at our Scope 3 emissions, by 2030, we want to be minus 25%. Well, what does that mean in reality? So when we look at where we are from 2019 until today, we will actually have to reduce 50% of our carbon footprint to get to the 25% compared to 2019. And by 2040, we want to be carbon neutral. Now, there's lots of activities that we're working on this. So, for example, our facilities in Germany are all 100% renewable energy sourced. And in Asia Pacific at the moment, we range from, honestly speaking, 0% with two of our Southeast Asia plants at the moment, up until 69% with some of our plants in Korea and India. Our two plants in Southeast Asia, both being in Thailand and Vietnam, we currently have solar panel projects for those, so we expect them to still meet our targets, but we're just starting a little bit behind because their newer plants' maturity level is less than what the plants are in India and Korea. The big challenge for us is 60% of our carbon footprint is steel, and steel is the main commodity that we use. So we're focused on that and working with our steel suppliers. And where we see a challenge is our steel suppliers have a roadmap to get to carbon neutral by 2050 and beyond. OEMs are not really pushing us on this, surprisingly, from the automotive sector yet. Their roadmaps are actually saying 2050, with the exception of one of the German automakers that has a target for 2039. So when you look at that, Schaeffler has a target to be carbon neutral by 2040, but the steel mills and our OEM customers are 10 years later. So if you look at the picture I've got in the background, this is our sort of take on it. We want to be that green ship in front and pulling the industry with us, but that obviously gives us big challenges in terms of pricing and availability of materials. So one of the activities we've done to support this is we have partnered with a startup company in Sweden called H2 Green Steel, and we already have a contract in place for 2025 to purchase 100,000 metric tons a year of carbon green steel.
So what carbon green steel, how would you describe that? I mean, is it recycled or?
Yeah, so it's got some recycling in there, but I mean, when you look at a traditional steel furnace, it would be a blast furnace. And I would say 70% of the carbon emissions come from the blast furnace. So what we're using in the H2 steel is we're using hydrogen to basically support their furnace technology, and that's where they can reduce the carbon footprint.
It's a very easy question to ask, but it's definitely very difficult to address it from my perspective, because the cruise business or the shipping business in general, we have been called by many names. We are not, I don't know whether I should say this, but okay, let's say this, right? You know that we are our cruise business straddle over a few different industries. We are a ship that moves, so we're in the maritime business, and that involves oil, air, fuel, and then we have been, like I said, we've been called many names, and then the pollution factor, the collateral damage to the sea itself, and then on the other side of the spectrum, because we move, we have 2,500 people on the ship at any one time, passengers alone. If you count the staff that supports it, it's about 4,000. So we've been this over tourism. It's another very interesting name for us, especially when we visit smaller islands. So people tend to focus on the very negative things that the cruise business bring onto certain things rather than what we have done. Now, the cruise business, the industry has been around since the 18th century. Modern cruising starts about in 1960s. This is more than 50 years from now. Many things have changed, and the whole business is very regulated by IMO, regulated by UN, and safety of life at sea, law of the sea. So let me give you a few examples because first and foremost, the ship have to comply with a lot of regulations on the type of fuel that we use, that we emit less than 1% of sulfur onto the air. The whole world follows that now. 10 years ago, none of such things. So we're doing whatever we can, and we want to do more. That's number one. Number two, how we treat black water, gray water, white water, strictly regulated. And then a lot of recycling process, a lot of waste management. 81% of all the ships comply with it. There are some ships, the older ships will fade out. Remember the cruise ships lifespan can go up to 50 years. So some of them, as they fade out, this number will only go up to 90%. So a lot of compliance. When it comes to food, sustaining the green source, sustaining the purchase. We go to plus carbon footprint is also important. Rather than having all the food flying in from all over the place, I said earlier, we make it a point to increase the ratio of purchasing from the land. And because the ship moved from Singapore to Penang, for example, so if you know that Penang is good for certain vegetables, certain fruits, we buy there. And then it's fresher, definitely, pricing-wise, that form of cost, the seasonality approach. And then we're using LNG, the ship itself, 16 to 20% of the world fleet. The newer ships are now going into LNG-powered machineries. That will definitely be greener energy. The impact of the cruise industry on the environment collectively cannot be underestimated. But at the same time, collectively, we are very mindful of the fact that what we can do and what we have done. So that's our little take on the green initiative. I have a lot to say. We need an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Because we're using both technology driven to help us but the greener technology. People have been asking, one very interesting question was, the ship can be 200 meters long, 40 meters wide, a lot of open space. Why can't we harness solar energy? Why can't we use the light? But those are space on board. Many companies are now exploring farming, vertical farming, and different kind of things. We are slowly moving towards there on a global collective basis. Give us time. So that's my only take on the green initiative.
Okay, that's good. How about electrification? What impact will that have on your respective industries? Mark?
I mean, so for automotive, obviously we have projections where we see that going, and I think the adoption of electric vehicles has been, sort of restricted a little bit by infrastructures in certain different countries in terms of charging points. That's one topic, but I don't really want to get into that topic today. But what we are seeing is adoption of electric vehicles really escalating. I think part of that is supported by the fact that there are now e-vehicles at opposite ends of a consumer scale, right? So we now have good products, vehicles coming in at entry level that you can get for $30,000, I mean, very, very competitively priced, up until 120,000 euros. But what does that mean for us in our industry and for our value chain is we will need to manage the transition from internal combustion engine to the electric vehicle. At some point, the internal combustion engine will be phased out. But the challenge there is, depending on the country or the region, it'll be done at a different scale and at a different point of time. So one of the great challenges that we face is, working with our existing supply chain to help them transition into the new era of e-mobility. And if you think about that logically, a lot of our suppliers, their core competencies can be carried over into the electric vehicles, whether it's casting, whether it's forging, whether it's, you know, plastic injection molding. So, you know, I think that's where we have a big responsibility, is we really need to be developing our supply chain to work with us through that transition. But I would say that's most definitely one of the biggest challenges. The second challenge is recruitment. So finding, and I think every industry is facing a shortage of being able to find software engineers and electrical engineers within the automotive industry is very, very challenging. So we also have to think about our recruitment process and how do we engage with the market to try and, you know, safeguard our future for future talents.
Daniel?
The only relevance to this electrification to my industry is 66% of the global cruise ships now are able to connect to shore power whenever we berth alongside. So that is also one form of operational issue to really address the environmental issue with burning less fuel. And then eventually you want to push it to 100%. They also cause for cleaner, more efficient sort of operations aspects. So that's the only thing that's relevant to us. And then of course going to the LNG as part of the cleaner energy aspects. You know, that's the only two relevant points that I have.
Okay, Mark, you were talking about employment, right? The opportunity to get people to come and work within the new sort of formats that are forming. How difficult is it to get talent to join your business?
I think it depends how you approach it. It's definitely a challenge. I think we all face similar challenges, right? But I think our approach is we're connecting with universities, we're connecting with technological institutions, and we're also connecting with startups. So I think NTU in Singapore, you probably know very well. So we work very closely with them, and also with universities throughout Asia Pacific and in Germany. Well, another topic that we do is we have a lot of PhD students that come in to do their papers within Schaeffler. So we give them a business case or an area that we think we need to improve, and we have PhD students that then focus on that and work with us on how we can improve that. And what they do is they bring in fresh new ideas. You know, blockchain technology is a new technology that we're starting to see. At some point, I'm sure that's going to come into the automotive industry, but anyone working within Schaeffler now, I'm pretty confident 99% have never used blockchain technology. So I think, you know, this is where we need to be connecting. We need to be connecting with the youth that's coming through these channels to help us move forward. And again, this helps us to focus on the diversity and inclusion topic as well, bringing young talents in to work closely together with the older generation, let's say, of experienced people, but working in harmony with each other to try and position us to be a better place to be competitive for the future.
Daniel, for your side, when your ships come back on stream, do you think you'll have a lot of fresh young talent joining, or will you still be tapping your existing pool of seasoned hospitality staff?
The cruise industry is a very glamorous industry, whereby our positioning is always to the young talents, the young graduates, or whoever that wants to join the industry, that cruise around the world, see the world while you can, while you're still young. Because on board the ship, if you have 1,000 crew, you can imagine that it's a mini UN kind of mix. So you really learn a lot. The cultural mix is good, so on and so forth. And we have the advantage of being able to recruit from any part of the world that we like to work on board the ship. Singapore is different because if you're a Singapore-based company, certain quotas you have to follow, MOM, that is understandable. We do not have that restriction, and we can have some certain pricing that is that works on both, fair crew wages that work on both sides, and it's all anyway regulated, moderated. We will definitely cast the net wider, like what we've always done around the world again. But more importantly, is because we also have been working with the different polytechnics, universities, tourism graduates or students, and our pool is bigger. Because it's really more service-orientated people. As long as you love people, you have a good common sense, you want to be trained, you want to work hard, that for us is easy to manage. Now, coming back, the other part of the cruise business deals with technical. So the technical has to do with the marine, which is the heartbeat, the engines. That's a bit challenging. The pool just gets smaller and smaller. We just have to pay top dollars or a bit more, and then there are ways around it.
Okay, so that means your costs will likely rise, and so that might mean things will become a bit more expensive for both your industries. Could I just have a parting shot? It's time already. What do you see as, how do you see your industry shaping itself, say, the next decade or so? And what major impact will that have on the end user? Let's start with you, Daniel.
There's this pre-pandemic, the cruise industry growth was exponential. Then there's a blip in the middle of 2 years, and then beginning of this year, 2022, when CDC and when the West started to open up, you see the exponential growth back to about 60%, 70%. Ours is not an easy industry whereby you say that let's increase the ship tomorrow, let's build a ship tomorrow. There's a time factor, there's a time lag. So we are very optimistic, not cautiously optimistic, that there's a lot of resets and adjustments. 2022 is really the preparation stage. 2023 is a stabilization stage, getting ready. By end of 2023, 2024, if the virus don't mutate too badly, even if it does, I think we probably know how to manage it. The vaccines will follow through. We are very optimistic and knowing that comes 2024, the projectile for the cruise industry will continue to be what it is pre-pandemic. That is 50 million cruiser, 16% or more of the market penetration to the hospitality cruise business as a whole.
Okay, great. Mark?
And I think obviously sustainability is going to be a big focus. I think we're going to get to a point at the moment. Sustainability in general is an order winning factor. You know, you don't have to have it right now because the OEMs are not demanding it, customers are not demanding it. But I think the culture is going to change, and I think in 10 years' time, it'll be a minimum requirement that there's a carbon footprint for a vehicle, and that we've made the right decisions in terms of having a green value chain to bring that product to market. And I think the infrastructure will see grow at a rapid rate by that time. And so I think the swing to electric and e-mobility will be quicker. I would even go as far to say in 10 years' time, you will start to see some autonomous vehicles on the road. We already have autonomous vehicles running as a trial in Seoul, Korea now on the road, you know, in taxis and bus services. So I think in the next 10 years, we're going to see a significant shift towards this new e-mobility.
Great. Daniel, Chui, and Mark, Pirie, thank you for being in today's session. Coming from different industries, I think there are some similarities in terms of what you anticipate down the line, sustainability being one of them for sure. And I think the desire to travel will still be there. People will still want to hop on a ship and have fun. The desire to drive will be there. Whether you can drive with autonomous vehicles might be another issue, but hopefully, but the cars will still be there. The transportation needs will still be met, I guess. So let's see how that shapes up. That's probably going to be a good point of discussion down the line as well as we see the reality of things taking place. But for now, thanks again for your inputs on what's been taking place in the pandemic and how your respective organizations have dealt with it, and I'm sure will emerge even stronger as a result. Thanks again to the audience for being there and for the questions. Thank you, and have a great rest of the week.